Hi everyone. So last week we talked about the stimulus package that the government brought out for small businesses or small and medium businesses that are affected by coronavirus. Yesterday, Sunday the 22nd of March, there was a further stimulus package released. Part of it was some new measures and part of it was some changes or an expansion of the original plans. So I'm here again with Ashlee and we're going to go through some of the new changes that affect businesses and including what sole traders might be able to do, which wasn't really covered by the first stimulus package. Okay, so Ashlee, we talked about systems for businesses who employ staff in the last video. This has been extended. What are the changes?
So in the original package, there was a 50% rebate, I guess, for PAYG withheld, and that was up to a total of $25,000. That's been increased to 100% of your PAYG withheld for the March and June BAS and the equivalent monthly reporters, and that's now up to a total of $50,000. In addition to that, in July, there'll also be an additional payment to match what you would have received to cover your PAYG withholding. So the maximum payment available to eligible businesses will be $100,000. They've also increased the minimum payment for employers who pay staff but don't have to withhold any PAYG from $2,000 to $10,000. So the minimum amount that they would receive would be $20,000 once the matched payment is received in July.
Great. And in the original package, if you didn't employ anybody, then this didn't apply at all. Is that still the case?
If you don't have any employees at all, then unfortunately this doesn't apply to you.
Okay, perfect. All right, the second thing, which is a new measure, the government's encouraging banks to lend to small to medium enterprises or SMEs. So can you give us some details about how this works?
So under the scheme, the government will be providing a guarantee of 50% of to SME lenders for new unsecured loans. This is to be used for working capital and is intended to increase willingness to extend credit to SMEs. The maximum size of these loans would be $250,000 per borrower, loan terms up to 3 years with an initial 6-month repayment relief. Loans would be in the form of unsecured finance, meaning borrowers would not need to provide an asset to secure the loan.
Yeah, perfect. So the business owner won't be asked to put their house up against the business to get this sort of a loan. And the government's released some money, so given some money to the banks, or lent some money to the banks at a very cheap rate, so they can on-lend that to small to medium enterprises. I think there's an end date on this as well, isn't there? Something I think it might be end of September 2020. Is that the?
Yes, until 30th of September 2020.
Yeah, perfect. So if you are running a business that does need some cash flow to cover rent or cover the cost of stock where sales are down, things like that, then there's a possible source of finance. They're also reducing some of the compliance on banks so it's easier to lend to businesses. So businesses that the law would tell them they would have to knock back under the responsible lending laws. Well, those laws are being relaxed so that banks can lend to businesses who need help at the moment. Okay, so next thing is some businesses will need to lay off casual workers, and I know that's really a tough thing for business owners to do. Is there anything that business owners can do for these workers?
So there's been an increase in the availability of job seeker payments. Payment amounts have been increased and waiting periods have also been reduced. So they may be eligible for those payments where they would not previously have been. So it's a good idea to make sure that they're aware of that, and so they can see if they're eligible to apply.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, there's probably nothing you can do personally for people in this situation, but if you can at least send those workers that fact sheet and they can look into what's available to them, because there is a lot of, it's not just access to Centrelink that's been made easier, but the amounts of the payments have gone up for the next 6 months as well, which could be a way of staying afloat while people wait to reopen their doors to business. Okay, great. And what about sole traders or people who don't employ anybody? So we talked about how the cash flow, the reduction in PAYG withholding. So for the tax you take out of your employer's wages, that will be reduced. If you don't employ anyone, that doesn't help you. But what are the things that sole traders can do?
So sole traders are eligible for the increase to the instant asset write-off, which we covered last time. It's increased from $30,000 to $150,000, and it's also now available to businesses with turnover under 50 million. They're also eligible for accelerated depreciation deduction arrangements. They may also be eligible for the job seeker payments. There's a new time-limited coronavirus supplement, which is $550 per fortnight that they may be eligible for. They could also be eligible for those SME loans that we discussed previously.
Yeah, perfect. Great. Cool. I'll just switch across to my screen. Where are we? The other thing that's open to individuals, including business owners, as well as sole traders, is the early access to super. So it's probably not something that people want to do necessarily if they can avoid it, but there is early access to super available. I'll just go through what the steps are for that. You can get $10,000 of your super in the current financial year, and you'll also be able to access another $10,000 from 1 July 2020. They're saying that approximately 3 months, let's assume it's about 30 September 2020, they haven't actually produced the legislation. None of this is law yet, by the way, so it's likely to become law. Both the major parties are saying they're going to back this proposal, and they're both working together to come up with the ideas. So all of this, you should be pretty certain will be law, but just that little disclaimer. So here's the eligibility for the early release. So you're unemployed, you're eligible to receive a job seeker payment, youth allowance, or parenting payment, or some other certain benefits, or you were made redundant after 1 January this year, your working hours are reduced by 20% or more, or if you're a sole trader, there's a reduction in your turnover of 20% or more, and you will not need to pay tax on the amounts released. So turnover, if you're a sole trader, that's your income before expenses. So if your sales or your fee income, whichever type of income you earn, is dropped by 20%, then you can think about getting money out of super tax-free, which is a quite helpful thing to do. Obviously, it's better to leave the super there if you can, because then you've got more later on. But if it's going to get you through a difficult time, keep your loan payments, keep your rent payments going, that sort of thing, while you get your business up and running again, that's a real an option worth considering for sole traders, and it applies to people who have been made redundant or whose shifts have been cut, which is quite helpful. If you were made redundant recently, even any time this calendar year, it is harder to find jobs at the moment. With people shutting down, there's more competition for jobs and there are less jobs available. So it's definitely helpful if you need to access super to get through that. And the last thing I thought I'd touch on today was that there are some changes to the situation for retirees. So there's a reduction in the amount you need to take out of your pension, and there's some other changes to people who hold Commonwealth Seniors Health Cards or age pensions. I might touch on that in a separate email or video. And finally, there's the $750 payments that were going to be paid to concession card holders and benefit recipients in April. That's been adjusted so that now be 2 payments of $750, the first one by the 13th of April 2020 and the second one in early July 2020. So those payments will apply to people on things like Commonwealth Seniors Health Card, job seeker payments, carers allowance, a whole bunch of different Centrelink low income cards, etc. So that's been increased as well. So that probably about covers it. We'll put a link in the description to all the fact sheets we looked at today, and also to the original video, which covered up on a bit more detail about how things worked for the employers, whether you're monthly payers or quarterly payers. And if you've got any questions, just give us a call or an email and we can go through this individually as it applies to your situation. Okay, thanks Ashlee for your time today. And yeah, get in touch anybody if you need further assistance with this.